it was a tough pill to swallow. We've had lots of commentary on it today, and Australia is out of the World Group for the first time in a long time. Of course, we lost the tie to Belgium last September up in Sydney, which put us in a perilous position. We were sitting in Bologna, the final part of the trip last year when the Davis Cup draw was taking place. So Mark Woodford was up there and the balls have been pulled out of the box there, and Ecuador versus Australia in Ecuador. And we sort of looked at each other and thought, okay, well, on paper, we should beat Ecuador. I mean, our players are much higher ranked. Ecuador's a fledgling tennis nation. They've had some good players across the period, but certainly not a production line of tennis players in a country where football, soccer, whatever you want to call it, is the major sport. They were the lowest ranked Davis Cup nation of all the qualifiers that took place this weekend. But of course, there's some trepidation when you know you've got to go to South America to play a Davis Cup tie, because it's a guarantee it'll be on clay, which has never suited the Aussies. Quito, the capital, high altitude, which makes it difficult, and a raucous home crowd. And this time, 12 months ago, I went to Argentina, to Buenos Aires. That was something else. More on that in the second hour. But it's intimidating. And we're minus Alex de Minaur, we're minus Alexei Popyrin. So it was going to be an uphill battle. I mean, I always talk about the small margins in tennis, and yes, the world number 250 can beat the world number 6. That can happen in tennis. The margins are really fine. So Alvaro Meza, ranked just outside 200, has the best win of his career, and he has played 95% of his matches on clay. So clay court specialist, we're minus our best two. Rinky Hijikata's on debut. He's been striking the ball pretty well this year, Rinky. Jordan Thompson gets the arm injury. James Duckworth plays his first ever singles match at the ripe old age of 34. And then the doubles, it was so tight going. So there wasn't much in it, but Ecuador found something. This is what I love about the Davis Cup. For me, it doesn't always need to have the best players. No problem, Alex de Minaur putting his hand up for the first time ever and saying, I'm going to skip a tie. That's okay. He's given more than he's probably required to for Australia. But it's in the DNA, certainly of Australian tennis, that you want to play Davis Cup. And that's the first time he's ever said, I'm not playing. Alexei Popyrin's a different case. He hasn't always committed to the Davis Cup cause. But it's going to be time now for a reset. We're going to be going back to World Group 1. We'll find out our opponent a little bit later on the year. Do we go a bit younger? What does that Davis Cup team look like? So I'd love you to share your squad tonight. Who are you going with? Are you excluding anyone? Have you put the ruler through anyone? What's this Davis Cup team going to look like for Australia? And does the captain keep his position? 10 years, Leighton Hewitt in the job, and probably now under more scrutiny than he ever has been. Daniel in South Caulfield's going to weigh in. 1300 736 736. G'day, Daniel.
G'day, BP. Love your work. You talk about small margins in Davis Cup, and it comes back to exactly what you were talking about before with Mr. Tiley and his role as CEO of Tennis Australia. Australia has previously had one of the proudest histories, particularly in Davis Cup tennis, but in tennis in general. And I think he's let slip in his role as CEO. Yes, the AO is a fantastic event, and he's the tournament director of an amazing 2-3 weeks of tennis in Melbourne, in this country. But I think he's really let slip with his role as CEO when, you know, we struggle to get people out of qualies in Grand Slams, majors. We struggle to win a Davis Cup tie against Ecuador. Really, I think something's got to change at the top.
Well, if it does change, and it looks likely, Daniel, it's going to change, and if you just go internal, and that's what is being mooted, it's a bit like the long-standing assistant coach, you know, takes over the senior job. And if we go back through the history of AFL football, we know that hasn't always worked. And clubs will say, no, if the coach goes, Then the support staff goes and we start fresh and we bring in a new group with a new direction. So it'll be interesting to see if they go internal. And I can tell you that Tom Larner has been groomed for that job. He's been at Tennis Australia a long time. There are a couple of others on the outside who would love to take on that role. So we're not. I can't say for sure what the organisational structure will look like post Craig Tiley's, but he's been a very powerful influence. 20 years in the job. I think the last 10 or so as CEO, tournament director, player development manager. I think he was when he first came in, looking after the pathway. So the role he denied 4 years ago when I spoke to him that having both hats was a hindrance. Now, unless you work internally in the organisation, we can't say for sure. But everyone I've spoken to at the AO says this role must be split into two. Right now, Australian tennis needs some reviving. It's on life support. And some people listening may think that's a little exaggeration. Yes, there is some talent coming through, but they're still to prove themselves. But right now, there's no point having one of the 4 best tournaments in the world without a big group of players to go with it. We're not given wildcards necessarily. So we need to lift, and it's not just the CEO, it's a high-performance team, it's coaches across the board, it's clubs out there, it's everyone in the ecosystem that needs to lift. Davis Cup, we're experiencing our longest drought. We haven't won the Billie Jean King Cup since the year I was born in 1974. So we need to lift as a tennis nation that is a hell of a lot more financial than most federations, certainly around the world.